taken out of context.
Taken out of context.
Taking things out of context.
Out of context.
Taken out of context.
Taken out of context.
In the context.
We have more context.
Out of context.
Taken out of context.
That is so out of context.
Out of context.
You're taking it out of context.
Now, hey, hold on. So we're going to flesh this out because I don't want nobody saying we don't take things in context.
Clipped me out of context.
It was out of context.
It's hard for your words to be taken out of context.
The full context.
In a modern day context.
Tell me the context.
Another important reminder as to why context is so important. So,
hello everybody, happy November. I'm Barbara Ann. Welcome back to my channel, Straight Out of Context. Fair use and copyright disclaimer. Britney Spears was reportedly diagnosed with bipolar disorder in 2008 following her public mental health struggles. Between the ages of 26 and 27 is around the time when most people with bipolar disorder fully presents itself, with the average onset being around the age of 25. This diagnosis was also mentioned in court documents during her time under a 13-year conservatorship, which ended in 2021. It is alleged she has other very serious diagnoses as far as mental disability and mental illness. And according to Britney Spears herself, it is very embarrassing. That's why she doesn't talk about it. And she also goes through great lengths to keep her medical records sealed, which is her legal, civil, and constitutional right to do so. However, the nature and the validity of this diagnosis has been a subject of discussion in her 2023 memoir, The Woman in Me. In the memoir, Britney Spears discusses the various diagnoses she has received during the conservatorship, including dementia, bipolar disorder, and indicated uncertainty about whether she actually suffers from any of the conditions, heavily implying and suggesting in her memoir that it was just to justify the conservatorship. She also speaks about being put on lithium for an average of 4 months, a medication commonly used to treat bipolar disorder, which she said made her feel drunk and scared. In fact, when speaking to the court and even addressing her family and her sons via Instagram, Britney Spears admitted that the lithium didn't come towards the end of her conservatorship when she was placed in another psychiatric facility for 5 months. She states that for over a decade, she had been stable on a certain medication, which she took every single day in the morning. She stated that while she was at the psychiatric facility, that they switched her over to lithium, and that this happened for 4 months, and then it was discontinued because of the way it made her feel, assuming, based on what she said, that she was having adverse effects to that medication. So it is a lie and misinformation when people say that it has done permanent brain damage to Britney Spears because she was on lithium for years. That is, in fact, incorrect. Her own testimony, trial transcripts, and even her own medical records prove that that is not true. In fact, taking lithium for 4 months is a common time frame for a treatment to be effective, and it's often a step in a longer course of treatment, particularly for conditions like bipolar disorder. It's important to continue taking the medication as prescribed, even if you feel better, and to maintain regular contact with your doctor for monitoring. Your doctor will likely assess your response and may recommend continuing lithium for at least 6 months or longer if it is effective to controlling your condition. In fact, we have all seen Britney Spears for many years on Instagram. We have seen her bipolar disorder when it is untreated. We have seen her addiction, substance use disorder, when it is left untreated. We have seen her as she became hyperactive, was disconnected from reality. We have all witnessed her in a full-blown mania, exacerbated by drugs and alcohol. We have watched for weeks, if not months on end, she disappears in a deep depression, often posting old videos. People with bipolar disorder often get stabilized on a medication and eventually stop taking it. And that is where the danger really comes into play, because the mania and the depression of the bipolar disorder itself can come back tenfold. People with bipolar disorder are 60% more likely to die at an earlier age because untreated bipolar disorder, mania, leads to erratic, impulsive behavior, risk-taking, and decision-making. And this, combined with a drug addiction, an alcohol addiction, you also see reckless, careless, drug-seeking behaviors. But what we have been saying for years, people who have advocated for her mental health, for her career, for her sons, is that the misinformation and the lies are not only deadly, they are dangerous and are doing a disservice to real victims. Because what you are seeing is not the result of somebody who was systematically abused for 13 years. Britney Spears has been displaying signs of bipolar disorder in her late teens. What we are truly seeing is the image and the persona no longer holding up. The smokescreen has cleared. The curtain has been pulled back. But what you're not seeing is permanent brain damage due to a medication that she was on for years. She was not on it for years. So when people say that, it's not only defamatory, but it's a lie. It's misinformation. Take a listen to this clip.
Do you know anybody that's on lithium? Have you ever seen anybody that's been on lithium for a long time and what it does to their brain? There's a lot of conspiracies on the internet regarding Britney Spears. It's probably the most famous example of somebody that was forced put on lithium for years. People think that she's dead.
Bipolar disorder also comes with manic episodes, elevated mood and energy levels, inflated self-esteem and grandiosity, decreased need for sleep, racing thoughts and rapid speech, impulsivity and reckless behavior, irritability and agitation, depressive episodes, persistent sadness and hopelessness, loss of interest and pleasure in activities, fatigue and low energy levels, difficulty concentrating and making decisions, changes in appetite and sleep patterns, thoughts of taking your own life. Hypomania is a less severe form of full-blown mania. Symptoms are very similar to a manic episode, but less intense and disruptive. Other symptoms: anxiety, panic attacks, rapid mood swings, mixed episodes, combining manic and depressive symptoms, hormonal fluctuations, triggering episodes. And with Britney, she has a long history, over 25 years, of physical assault and physical violence and domestic violence against 2 husbands and 2 children. I have gone over this before in detail in many of my videos, but she has never been held accountable criminally or legally for any of the dozen-plus people, including a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy, a female, who she ran over her foot and physically assaulted her. Because white women with fame, money, power, wealth, connections are the most privileged in the legal and criminal systems of the United States of America, whereas their male or even their minority same gender counterparts are going to see lot harsher sentences. They are also arrested and charged for such crimes at a larger rate, with some examples being Karen Reed, Casey Anthony, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, Lori Vallow Daybell not receiving the death penalty, but yet Chad Daybell does. Britney Spears deflects any accountability or responsibility for herself, her actions, or what led to the conservatorship. Bipolar also has these unique symptoms in females: premenstrual mood swings that worsen with bipolar disorder, increased risk of postpartum depression, higher likelihood of experiencing rapid cycling, frequent mood shifts, delusions, and hallucinations in severe cases, which can also be exacerbated by illicit drug use and also alcohol use. So when people talk about Britney Spears and Kevin Federline today, they often forget this. Yes, they may be adults legally now, but they are still her children. They will always be her children. And it doesn't deflect or negate the fact that she still low-key threatens them in her Instagram captions, low-key blames them in her Instagram captions. She's even made verbal threats over 4 years ago to cut them off financially. But you have to remember the amount of abuse, neglect, and trauma that both of these boys endured since they were born. They have never fully had or known their mother. Had Britney Spears had 2 daughters, now adults, they would have spoken out a long time ago. They would have exposed everything about their mother. Whereas her sons have largely stayed hidden, even on their own social media accounts, and have protected her, while she stood by and allowed her fans in the Free Britney movement to not only mock her teenage children, but to blame them for their own abuse. Here's a news flash for you. Just because she has money and she is famous, just because she has addiction issues and bipolar disorder, does not mean that she is free of consequences, accountability for her actions, her words, her choices, and her behaviors. Take a listen to this next clip.
I am not exaggerating when I say this is one of the craziest takes I have ever seen on the internet. Let's watch and discuss.
If Britney Spears had adult daughters and not adult sons, I really think her situation would look so much differently. And that's just food for thought. I reflect on that a lot. If she had 2 adult daughters, they're looking out for her and protecting her, I genuinely feel like her situation would look so much differently.
Look, I love Britney Spears. As an elder millennial, she was woven throughout my entire childhood. That doesn't change the fact that she was absolutely an abusive parent to her sons. Like, that's not even a debatable question. It is a literal fact. We have seen evidence of some of that abuse. We've seen videos of her in a very obvious manic state, dragging her young sons out of bed at 3 a.m, forcing them into a car and making them go joyriding around with her as she rambles, again in the middle of the night. That is abuse. We've seen photos of them, even younger, with giant burns on their scalp from where she decided to bleach their hair and did such a bad job of it that she literally burned their scalp. That's abuse. Her being a victim of abuse herself does not negate the fact that she went on to be an abuser toward her sons. In fact, it's actually not uncommon at all for people who were abused as children to go on to abuse their own children. That's what happens when people don't break out of toxic abusive cycles within their own family. But while their experiences with childhood abuse help explain what they did, it doesn't excuse it. And it certainly doesn't mean that that abused child has any responsibility to protect their abusive parent, now or in the future. Breaking cycles sometimes means cutting people off, even if those people were themselves abused in the past. And look, suggesting that Britney Spears' sons cutting her off has something to do with their gender also perpetuates really, really toxic expectations that are put on girls and are rooted very much in sexism, that somehow there's this expectation that girls will go on to be the caretaker for anyone in their life that needs it, regardless of how they've been treated in the past. And I know that sounds heartless. I know it sounds crass, but it is the truth. And if cutting her off is what her sons need to do in order to move on and be healthy and break those cycles for themselves, then good for them. And finally, I need y'all to understand that when you post about Britney Spears' sons like this, you are, whether inadvertently or on purpose, acting as an instrument of abuse on her behalf. If you're unfamiliar with the flying monkeys theory around abusive family members, look it up, because that's what you're doing to Britney Spears' sons. And that's really, really unfair for them. Britney Spears is not owed any additional deference from her children just because she is famous or just because she was famously abused. Please stop perpetuating these ideas.
And now you can understand why, with her behavior and her medical records, she never stood a chance to have custody of her kids. This is a woman who doesn't even remember to comb her own hair, to wash her face, to take a shower every single day, or to do normal everyday tasks, let alone can she manage the physical, emotional, mental care of 2 children. And as of the last 5 years, Britney Spears largely is being paid through her Instagram. That is how she is making money, and that is how she is funding her continued negative pattern of behavior, actions, words, and choices. Yes, she had continued to work through the conservatorship for 13 years, doing a 4-year Vegas residency where she allegedly grossed about $60 million for herself. However, that has long been spent. Every 2 weeks, she goes to Mexico, to her place in Hawaii, French Polynesia, and everybody is all for if she wants to take a break. But that's not what she's doing. She's just doing whatever the fuck she wants to do, and that has always been drugs and alcohol. This is a pattern that we're seeing reemerge from the time she was 16 years old, when she first became interested in drugs and in alcohol. And we see that. We know that's what's happening. Oral fixation, /stemming stimulants like Adderall, methamphetamine, crack, cocaine, etc. can cause orofacial stereotypes and compulsions, which are repetitive, involuntary movements of the mouth and tongue. Chewing gum, smoking cigarettes, sucking eye candy, pacifier, or other items can help manage this urge for oral stimulation. Stimulants increase the craving for items like cigarettes, gum, or suckers through a combination of neurochemical interactions and physiological and behavioral mechanisms, primarily involving the dopamine reward system and the need for oral stimulation. Dry mouth also happens with stimulants. Dancing around endlessly for hours, not eating or staying hydrated appropriately, or consuming alcohol, which can actually dehydrate you that much faster. We have seen Britney always have an obsession with pacifiers. From the time that Sean Preston was a baby, she would stick his ninny in her mouth. There are photos of such, but we've also seen her recently driving erratically, dangerously, while she's doing what looks to be substances. But you can go back on her Instagram and you'll see pictures like this. She not only has 1, but 3 different cell phones with the camera app open, 2 packs of extra gum, 2 packs of cigarettes, and 3 different pacifiers. But what's alarming about this is that she's mimicking masturbating, putting her hand in areas where it really shouldn't be for an Instagram post, spreading her legs wide open in the same video. She clearly is not in her right state of mind, and her accents, her baby talk, her mumbling, her incoherency, those are all symptoms of several different things happening at the same time. Her bipolar mania, drug and alcohol use, and likely not taking medication for her bipolar disorder. And remember, much like Taylor Swift has recently on her new album, The Life of a Showgirl, Britney Spears was very quick to always remind her fans and the audience to keep dreaming, but in reality, you can never be her. You can never do what she does. There has always been a level of very high self-confidence, condescending nature, and conceit to that, to which some would even say it's narcissism, sociopathy. An example of that is this video. Take a listen.
I'm not a little girl anymore. The way I feel right now inside, I feel so wonderful because I'm doing exactly what I love to do. And I'm experiencing all of my wildest dreams. And my advice to you is to never, ever lose your passion to dream. Please. Don't.
But like I said, God would not allow that to happen to me if a God existed. I don't believe in God anymore because of the way my children and my family have treated me. There is nothing to believe anymore. I'm an atheist, y'all.
What Britney Spears fails to acknowledge or understand is that God is not responsible for what human beings do. The same way God is not responsible for her abuse or neglect of her children and so many countless people. 2 husbands, staff members, even her own family. God didn't do anything to her. And the way that she blames her children, when that audio was taken, they were still minors. Yet she was actively blaming them for treating her horrible, for the abuse on her, the same way her sister, who is 10 years younger than her, has been blamed, even though she was only 9 years old when Britney Spears attacked her with a kitchen knife. She was barely 15 years old when her sister got put under the conservatorship. That is absolutely absurd to me, how mean and cruel people have been to Britney's own sons and even her little sister. Even standing by and liking posts like this, threatening her children. Triple dog dare you to play. In a world where I've always felt too scrutinized and judged. Remember, the ones you love the most will hurt you the most. Is it, my friends, taking chances or my fucking birthright to live? Period. I prefer to live, pray, eat, sleep, repeat. And she intentionally uses a little picture of 2 small boys playing chess. This is a subliminal message and intimidation threat to Sean Preston and Jaden James. And this was taken right as Kevin Federline's book was to be released. This is her threatening them that if they do any press with their father backing up his memoir or any of his claims with the triple dog dare you to play, that she will cut them off, which she has done multiple times, or she will pull a Taylor Swift and narcissistically use her fan base and the Free Britney movement against her own children. She's saying, you don't want to play with me, so don't you dare. Don't you dare speak up. Don't you dare say a thing, even if it's standing in truth. Truth she needs to hear from her sons. But coming from somebody who always portrayed herself to be this good Southern girl from Louisiana, a God-fearing Christian, she still can't make up her mind if she actually believes in God or not. And remember, she once tried to convert to Judaism and was practicing Judaism, claimed that there is no God in the face of God, then says things like she's gone to church with Jaden, reminiscing on times at churches with her grandfather, then tells the whole world that she's an atheist and doesn't believe in God anymore, compares herself to Maleficent having her wings taken from her. But she can go on Instagram and post herself naked in her own bed multiple times, then say, I've never done anything like that. This is really the first time of me taking a picture of my face in my own bed, knowing good damn and well it's not. Naked on Instagram is her go-to, her modus operandi. And we all know that Britney Spears has always been a very reckless, dangerous, bad driver. She's ran over the feet of law enforcement officers, done hit and runs, had severe accidents, minor accidents. She's been driving erratically for years. And sure, maybe she just is a shitty driver. But then again, maybe she's not in the right state of mind to be driving. This is something that I have been talking about for over 2 years. And in my own opinion, the abuses really come into play when people are signing multi-million-dollar contracts with somebody who is mentally disabled or mentally ill, the way that Britney Spears has always been. This is the real Hollywood. As long as you get up on stage and you perform, well, guess what? Here's the secret. You can be mentally disabled and mentally ill and still perform. And that has always been my opinion where the abuses come into play. Yeah, mentally disabled and mentally ill people can work, but forcing them to work, especially somebody who is under a conservatorship for mental reasons, she shouldn't have been allowed to sign any contract, let alone be forced to work or make millions. That is the disparity and the disproportionate pay to other hardworking Americans. Why does Britney Spears, mentally disabled and mentally ill, get to make millions and millions of dollars, live in a giant mansion, fly to Mexico or Hawaii every 2 weeks whenever she wants? Yet most Americans, like myself, have never even stepped foot outside of the country or have ever been on a plane. But sure, just take her word because it's always everybody else's fault or her children's fault or her family's fault and never her own, while gaslighting and manipulating everybody, trying to tell you that she is being gaslit and manipulated. You don't need any further proof than this. Her recent Instagram videos show over 17 different contusions, big ones, all over her body, from her neck down to her busted foot and busted knee, of which the same leg appears to be purple. Going to high-end restaurants in the bathroom, recording videos where she has a nip slip while simultaneously dancing around in circles and humping public bathroom walls. And again, using the name of God to justify her thoughts, feelings, behaviors, choices, or words. It's truly despicable to me because using God or religion to gaslight and manipulate people or to get them to not question you is a whole different level of sick to me. And these alleged friends that she keeps going and seeing are likely her plugs, her dealers. But falling down the stairs at a friend's house, it didn't happen. It's a lie. But she's also very quick to remind everybody that she's also not a victim. for somebody who plays the perpetual victim all the time, she also wants to remind you all the time that she's really intelligent, that she reads books, does puzzles and art, prays, but she also reminds everybody all the time she doesn't want your concern or your pity because she's fine. She just wants to be a good woman and be better every day. She even said so in this clip. Take a listen, because she makes it explicitly clear she is not a victim.
What am I going to do now that the conservatorship's over with? Very good question. I've been in the conservatorship for 13 years. It's a really long time to be in a situation you don't want to be in. So I'm just grateful, honestly, for each day and being able to have keys to my car and being able to be independent and feel like a woman. Having an ATM card, seeing cash for the first time, being able to buy candles. It's the little things for us women, but it makes a huge difference. And I'm grateful for that, you know. It's nice. It's really nice. I'm not here to be a victim. I lived with victims my whole life as a child. That's why I got out of my house and I worked for 20 years and worked my ass off. I'm here to be an advocate for people with real disabilities and real illnesses. I'm a very strong woman, so I can only imagine what the system has done to those people. So hopefully my little story, my story will make an impact and make some changes in the corrupt system. And the Free Britney movement, you guys rock. Honestly, my voice was muted and threatened for so long. I wasn't able to speak up or say anything, and because of you guys and the awareness of kind of knowing what was going on and delivering that news to the public for so long, you gave it awareness to all of them. Because of you, I honestly think you guys saved my life in a way. 100%. Let's move forward. God bless you all. We're gonna have a good year, good Christmas, and rock on.
Notice in that video, she says that she's here to be an advocate for people with mental disability and mental illnesses just like her. And then says that she hasn't had a voice, and because of Free Britney, she feels like they seen and heard her. So how can she advocate for other people with her small little story if she is trying to tell you also in the same breath that she didn't ever have a voice? She also says that she worked for over 20 years and left her house as a kid. That's not true. She was never emancipated. While trying to tell you that she's a victim, she's also saying with her actual words that she's not a victim. She doesn't want sympathy or pity, that she's very strong and intelligent. Also saying things like her keys, her passport, and her money was taken from her. Not true. During the 13-year conservatorship, she was seen and caught by paparazzi shopping all the time, traveling, going on vacation all the time. She went on at least 3 vacations every year with her kids. And yes, Britney Spears certainly did drive a car during her 13-year conservatorship. There are multitude of paparazzi videos and photographs of her doing exactly that. But we can go back even a year and see that she clearly was using substances while even in Mexico, which is now becoming alarming and dangerous in a foreign country. It begs the question, is she buying large quantities of illicit drugs or alcohol and importing them into the United States for personal use? Or does she like to go to Mexico and Hawaii because she's less likely to be caught while using? I don't know, but I do know one thing. Since she was 16 years old, whoever the hell is in charge of doing her hair extensions failed big time. I'll be 40 years old soon, so I have grown up, literally, as Britney Spears was growing up. And I've always been very dumbfounded by how she can have so much money, wealth, fame, and yet have the worst looking weaves. And who in the hell is letting her get on stage performing looking like that? But it also reminds me of how her physical, oral hygiene has always been really, really bad. There's more photos of her with makeup from a week ago. Bad breath, no deodorant, and horrible weaves and hair extensions than there are photos of her looking put together. But this is also very common for people that are struggling with bipolar disorder and or alcohol and substance use disorder. Much like Gypsy Rose Blanchard, Britney Spears often cuts at her own hair, going back to even when she was 16 years old. You never see her with her natural hair. Her hair has been bleached blonde so many times, had so many extensions done, that her natural hair is extremely thin and string-like. It's so thin today that it doesn't even hide the hair extensions. So why doesn't her hairstylist do wigs? Why are they allowing her to leave the house looking like this for the last 30 years? I don't know, but it's always been a symptom to me that there has been something going on with Britney from the time she was 16 years old till now. And we've seen it. We've watched it. It's been right in front of our faces. But because she gets on stage, she lip syncs, she does the dances, she performs and does what's expected of her. She's paid extremely handsomely, and this is what leads people to believe that she's a part of the Illuminati, or that she's being controlled by the Illuminati. Even when she did this, it's not because she wanted to take away the one thing that was sexy. Her hair extensions were being shaved off. Because behind the scenes, what you don't know is it's very common for her to cut them or pull them out. She also was very erratic about changing her hair from blonde to brown, which is very damaging for natural hair. But when Britney Spears is sober and stable and her bipolar disorder is being treated, she's very conceited. She very much cares about her persona and her image, her brand, or lack thereof. And to say she's never fought back against the conservatorship is a lie. During the entire filming of this unreleased music video, Britney Spears was yelling and cussing and threatening her father, bitching and complaining that she didn't like the costume that she was supposed to wear. Then she decides to go naked with red body paint instead of the tiger that she was supposed to be inside the cage. She was not happy with the way she looked, so the video was never released. Because at the end of the day, it's Britney's world and we're all just living in it. What Britney wants, Britney always gets. Which also comes to no surprise for somebody that's naked on Instagram all the time. Someone who pretended to be a virgin all the way into her 20s, knowing she lost her virginity at a very, very young age, has spent 30 years being hypersexual, not only in her songs, in her performances, on her social media accounts and pages, all more signs that point to her bipolar disorder. And no, she is not in control over the fact that she has bipolar disorder or addiction and alcohol issues. However, she is not free from critique or criticism because she does have control over treating it, managing it, and the lies, the gaslighting, and the manipulation of her fans, the Free Britney movement, and the public, as well as weaponizing her fans against her own children, her own family. Yes, she is absolutely 100% responsible and accountable for that, for herself, for managing her mental health and her sobriety. But all we see constantly is her shift blaming and pointing the fingers at other people because in her mind, it reasons away, justifies, and condones her continuing the behavior that she doesn't want to stop. And at this point, Britney Spears has been a very heavy 2-pack-a-day smoker for over 27 years. If she never wants to sing or dance again, that's fine, because she's not going to physically be able to. Not with the damage to her body internally, externally, but what her fans and people who do care and love her want is for her to be in a healthy, good, positive place and to be a proactive participant in her own life, in her own sobriety, in her own mental health care, because we do want her around. Because God is going to bless her with beautiful granddaughters for the little girl that she has never been able to have. And everybody is rooting for her and wants to see her healthy, happy, and living a long life to be able to be here for her future grandchildren. But at this rate, and the decline that we have seen in the last 4.5 years, it would not come as a shock or a surprise if something bad or fatal does happen. But despite and regardless, I still pray often that that's not the case. That's not the result, and that's not the outcome. But it's up to no one but Britney Spears herself to make sure that that is a truth and a reality. And there is a huge missed opportunity there, because in the last almost 5 years, she really could have been an advocate for mental disability and mental illness, like she said. But the only thing she's ever advocated for is for her own complete freedom to do whatever she wants, which is to smoke, drink, take illicit drugs, and not treat her bipolar disorder. And if that's what she wants, then that's what she's going to get. Because at the end of the day, she has always gotten exactly what she wanted. And with Britney Spears, she likely always will, even if it means pretending to be a victim so she can continue that bad and negative behavior, blaming and threatening her own children to be able to continue that bad and negative behavior. But my real question is, where are her so-called fans in the Free Britney movement now? Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. Please like and share. Don't forget to smash the subscribe button, and I will catch you all on the flip side.